Welcome back, everyone. Snapping around. It's been a while since we've recorded some other things. Trav, you moved. I couldn't make last week. Got a new puppy, so we've had some life issues pop up, but all good here. You boys are doing good. I mean, it's been 3 weeks since we've last talked, recorded.
Yep, I think so. Missed last two.
Yeah, I'm good. Less busy at work, so
yeah, I bet.
Good.
Yeah, we obviously with missing some weeks, lots to talk about here. We're gonna start with the Avalanche. Lose Game 7 to Dallas. I mean, it is what it is. That was a series that was going to go either way. We all said the Avs were going to win just because we're Avs fans, but I'll let you each kind of have a shot here. What's just a quick breakdown of what you saw in that series as a whole?
There's no denying that the Stars are just a very deep team. They were the one team that made me nervous coming into the playoffs, at least on the West side. And unfortunately, we drew them in the first round. But I think my biggest takeaway from the series was that we were we were losing the fight noticeably to a Stars team that didn't have Jason Robertson, who's a top 3 forward, and Miro Heiskanen, who's easily their best defenseman and a top 5 defenseman in the league. So the fact that we were noticeably just kind of getting beat up and manhandled by the Stars without those two was kind of the writing on the wall. I'm actually almost surprised it went 7 games. I'm gonna try to just avoid the negative stuff on the Avalanche. It's obviously very disappointing, but that was my biggest takeaway was that if we can't beat the Stars without 2 of their biggest players missing, I don't think we even really deserve to be there.
What about you, Justin? Different point of view on it, or?
I mean, that's one. He's got one part down. I think that's a pretty big, sorry, not pretty big. I think it's a really good point about the Stars missing, 2 of their top dogs. I've been kind of thinking about this series kind of since it ended, just kind of, continually watching the Stars play. And I mean, I think, I think the Avs lost this series more than the Stars won it. To go with Trav's point about them, missing 2 guys. They were, god awful on special teams. That killed them. 3 for 23 on the power play, which a lot of those power plays, there's a couple 4 minutes, a couple in overtime or going into overtime, you got to capitalize there. That's where you have to, someone's got to step up and kind of, put the dagger in. And, honestly, that series should have been over in 5, probably. They just could not, put them down. How many third period leads they kind of spoiled too. Obviously they came back in game 6, but I mean, I think there was 3 third period leads that whole series that the Avs blew. That's not a recipe for any Stanley Cup champion. So that's kind of where I kind of get my mindset of they lost the series, I think, more than the Stars won it. And I'm not trying to kind of take away from how good the Stars are. And I'm not trying to sound like a homer, but that's just kind of the way I saw it, even after thinking about it for almost, 2 weeks now. And I had no issues with how Blackwood played. I think he did just fine, but Ottinger's just way better. And I think if they played against any other goaltender in the Western Conference, again, probably over in 5, Ottinger saved them a lot this series. I think the Avs were a lot better than kind of how they're being predicted, or how they're, how things are kind of being looked at now. Doesn't matter though, like if you don't win. And I mean, I have some comments on everything that's happening online around the Avs and Mikko Rantanen. I don't know if I want to get into that at all, but yeah, that's kind of how I saw the series. Those are like the main points that why I thought they didn't pull it.
Yeah, you both brought up like kind of piggyback off both your points there. Trav, to the point of them missing Heiskanen, it just shows like you look at the rest of that Dallas blue line outside of Thomas Harley, they're just big bodied guys that are physical in the corners and in front of the net. And like you said, Justin, it's not like Blackwood really coughed up the series at all. It was the Avs couldn't get those pucks by Ottinger as clean. Part of that's because they couldn't always keep a body in front. Dallas's defense did good clearing the front of the net at times. And to me, it just shows again, we've kind of touched on it over the years with Colorado. I think you have to go back and really have a look now is, can you have a D-core with Makar, Taves, and Girard as your top 3 defensemen? Because they're all 6'1" and under. Like, they need some size back there. I think McFarland recognized that. That's why he went out and got Lindgren. But you still have too many small guys that just – you can't win like that in the playoffs. Like, you look at all the teams that are into the second round now, a lot of them have big, heavy defensemen on that back end. And Colorado just doesn't have a lot of that. And that's maybe the biggest area I think this summer they need to address. Because you got the star power, you got your goaltender, you just need to fine-tune those small aspects of the game. And again, a team like Dallas exploited it, especially with some of the size of their forwards up front. So it's a good fought series. Like, it lived up to the hype. Like you said, though, Justin, any other goaltender, and it's probably a different outcome for Colorado. So I know you didn't want to get into the Rantanen one, but I mean, he kind of put the stars on his back in games 5, 6, 7. He was invisible the first 4. How much of Rantanen doing that in that series just shut up a lot of fans about him always riding McKinnon's coattails?
Yeah, it's I mean, unfortunately, as an Avs fan, and I think you said it earlier in the year there, JC, I would hate to see 2 former Avs knock us out 2 years in a row, and that's exactly what happened. You know what? To flip this into a positive, I'm pretty happy for Rantanen that he's doing as well as he is. He gave a lot to the franchise in Colorado, and now, aside from eliminating the Avalanche, he's playing at this absolutely unreal pace right now. He's an absolute no-brainer for the Conn Smythe favorite at the moment. He's continued his hot streak well into this Jet series. His DNA's been all over it. And, really at the end of the day, I think the Stars might have got their missing piece in Rantanen, which is a game breaker. I think some of the younger guys in Dallas, in Robertson and Wyatt Johnston, can get to a game-breaking level of their game, but I think right now they still have room to grow, and Mikko Rantanen is right dead smack in the prime of his career. So I think he's exactly what they've needed to kind of get over this this kind of second, third round hump that they've been stuck in since their trip to the Cup Finals. I guess that was 5 years ago, maybe. So, I mean, it's we'll get into it in a little bit here, but like I think right now, like you got to think the Stars are, or at least in my opinion, they're a favorite. Yeah, I guess that's really all I have on that.
Yeah, I mean, I like basically, I get everything that Trav was saying about, Miko, and kind of feel the same way about like that's good for him, this and that. I kind of wanted to, put my attention towards kind of everything that I read online, more or less, just, because there's a lot of negativity and there's kind of a lot of slander, I guess, towards the Avs front office, I guess specifically McFarland. I just kind of want to look at it sort of as a whole, like kind of why this happened. There's this whole narrative online that's just like why didn't you pay Rantanen and like this and that, like you had, like I can't believe they didn't pay him and they trade him. Like what's the difference between 11.7, 11.75 and $12 million over 8 years? At the time when the Avs traded him, they thought, he wanted over 12, like closer to Draisaitl money. That was the whole consensus of this whole thing throughout the whole year up until he signed that deal with Dallas. So this whole, like, they tried to pay him. They tried to pay him a reasonable number. And if you look at that, that's $3 million over 8 years for a guy that up until this point has made $50 million. Like, what's the big difference? Like, over the course of like the next $100 million, if you get 2 or 3 mil. So they did try to pay him. They couldn't get to where they were comfortable with paying him. If he just took that deal, it would all be set. And then he said no, so they traded him. Like, it's totally fine with me. It was the day after it happened. It still is today, knowing everything that happened. Clearly, he got to the open market. He went to a team he didn't want to be with, and he was still getting the same offers, about $12 million. But he said no. I think he must have just got angry and just like, you know what, just trade me to Dallas so I can, turn this back onto Colorado and shove it in their face. Kind of like he said in interviews, like, I don't really know, like, you're shoving $3 million in Colorado's face over 8 years. So like, that's the only thing to me, like, that's kind of my whole opinion on the situation with him. Good for him. He got less than what he actually wanted from Dallas. He could have stayed in Colorado. It seemed like he liked it, but you know what it is. Colorado got 2 good players. Just didn't work out in the end, but good on him for, showing up in the playoffs. It was really never a question. He just goes on streaks, and now we are where we are. But that's kind of like, I want to get my opinion out there on the whole thing, because that's kind of how I've seen everything that's gone down since, was that January?
Yeah, to that too, like the whole money issue with Rantanen, I found was, like you said, the whole talk was around that 13 and a half, 14 million the whole year. Like, that's the number that's floating out there. And obviously, yeah, Colorado really didn't want to go much higher than 12 million. Really, like, they didn't want to go above McKinnon for him. I think part of it too was everyone's saying like, oh, I signed the 8x12 in Dallas. Well, let's have a look too at the financials of this, because Dallas is a tax-free state. Like, he's getting this whole 12 million per year. Like, for Colorado to actually match it, I have no idea what the tax percentages difference is in Colorado compared to Dallas or Texas. But like, that's probably where that 13.5 million came in, because Rantanen's trying to like compensate for a lot of the taxes that he has to pay in Denver. Whereas in Dallas, he doesn't have to worry about those. He's just paying his agent fees and some other stuff, but he's not worrying about those taxes. Like, it's just one, I think a lot of people always forget. Like, everyone bitches about Florida and Tampa is getting the guys. Like, let's remember here, there's other tax-free states in the U.S., and Dallas just took advantage of it, basically saying, we're a win now team. We're built for like right now and long-term future, and you get to keep all of this money up front. So that's my stance on that whole financial issue with Rantanen. Like, people need to start thinking about some of the tax implications when players are signing, especially now that the cap's going up so much, because teams have so much more to spend. And it's not that they're not willing to spend. It's literally this hard cap does not let teams spend the way they should. So, but to your point on the Avs getting two good players, like, to me, a lot of this Rantanen discussion isn't much of a discussion, like isn't as big a topic if Marty Necas just showed up a bit more in the playoffs. Like, if he produced a bit more, then it's kind of a whatever. Like, but the fact he really just kind of like he disappeared in the playoffs, didn't do a whole lot. That's what makes it stings the most, because now you're having McKinnon trying to just drag that forward group through everything. And yeah, like, he just couldn't do it. Like, at least when Rantanen was there, they had him. Like, Nuke, you could tell it's been so long. Like, he had such a long break in an up and down year. Landeskog, we're gonna get to more on him shortly. Like, again, he was off for over 1,000 days. Like, there's just so many guys on the Avs forwards that just drop the ball, and Necas just being one of them just highlights the disappearance of or the trade for Rantanen, because he was part of that deal.
Speaking of Landeskog there, you mentioned him, Brock. I'll just kind of do a little transition into him. I mean, first and foremost, what an amazing comeback story. I think anybody who's a hockey fan can appreciate that story. I thought, to be perfectly honest, and I'm not just saying this because, like, you know, I was excited as anybody to see him back. I thought, other than the LOC, was probably our second best forward in that series. And I know McKinnon had 11 points. But, I mean, you're not going to keep Nate McKinnon off the board. Like, he's, you know, one of the best players in the league. He's going to have, you know, a night with a couple points somewhere in that mix. But I thought at various times in this series, even McKinnon was incredibly frustrating to watch. I thought that was the worst stretch of hockey I've ever seen Cale Makar play, which, I mean, was a little bit disappointing because of the second half of the season that he put up. I thought, and based on what we had seen in previous years, that would continue into the playoffs, which was unfortunately not the case. But jumping back to Gabe Landeskog, you know, he gets a big goal there in Game 4, and like, just amazing to see it. You know, even win or lose that game, and fortunately the Avs did win that game. That's kind of a moment that you stop in time and, you know, just appreciate all the hard work that you know, he's put in to get back to this point. You know, I thought the last couple of years he's been the missing ingredient, and obviously this year wasn't our year, but I still think it's incredibly valuable for the identity of that group that he's back in the lineup. Yeah,
to your point of like the fact Landeskog was a top 3 forward for the Avs in this series, again, just illustrates the point of how many guys drop the ball. And I mean, like, it's going to help long term. It's going to be nice to have him back, but like, this was a winnable, like Justin, you kept saying it. So it was a winnable series, and if you had Nelson stepped up a bit more, if Necas steps up a bit more, if Druin and Nichushkin step up just an extra bit more, who knows where the series, like Colorado could be in Winnipeg right now. So it's a tough one. Like you said, though, Trav, Landy scoring that game 4 goal, like nothing's going to take that away. Like even if they lost the game, like thank God they won it. Even if they lost, that moment still would have just been etched in history because of the importance of it for what he's went through. But you got anything to add on Landeskog, Justin, or?
No, man, it's good to see him back. It's good to see, like, even when he came back there, it was like, maybe this is just it. Like, maybe he's just going to like tough this out and, this will kind of be like his last hurrah, but it kind of sounds like he's good to go. So, even more kind of something to look forward to, but just seeing him back, it was great. Seeing how good he was incredible. And it's just unfortunate, like you said, these other guys couldn't step up. The big trade deadline acquisition didn't score. They had no goals that whole series. Like that's huge. Like you can't just let Nate.
Yeah.
He was kind of the only one that like was producing. Like I wouldn't say it was his best series, but he was producing. And then Trav said it. Like I think really another big thing in the series that I didn't bring up was how bad Makar was. I thought he was hurt for sure. I thought as soon as it came out, he was going to come out with an injury, but he wasn't. The only person hurt that whole series was Colton, who wasn't playing. So I wonder, kind of what was said after this series, like to Makar, and it's just like, whatever was going on there. Maybe he's just snake bitten. I don't know, but I've never seen Makar fumble the puck so much, make so many mistakes that often. Sometimes there's a game where he's not on. That's going to happen. I've never seen it this consistent throughout a series. That really hurt. So just expect a lot more from some of these guys, and I'm happy Landy's back, but I'm interested to see kind of what they need to do going forward, because there's kind of all this talk of like how great this Avs team is, and the cup is awesome. I'm never gonna shit on getting a cup, but how great are you really? Like you had that one season. Like you see all these teams, they go to the cup finals 2 or 3 times. Tampa did it, Florida did it, maybe on their way again to another cup final. Like, that feels like this team just gets stuck, in the second round. If they don't get like even the first round, like, they've only won one series since they've won the cup. There's something missing here with this team, and they need to kind of fix this. And I don't know if I said it to you guys, I've said it to somebody. I just not really sure we have the guide to do it, because he's had a few years to kind of figure this one out. And, you're wasting valuable time with 2 elite superstars, which used to be kind of 3.
Yeah, we'll get to that. I just want to touch on Makar. I kind of said it in the group chat. Like I felt you just go back and look at the season, you add in 4 nations. Like Makar was almost 25 minutes a night, and it goes back to the whole there's no need. I kind of said like Bednar doesn't need to ride Makar averaging 25 a night. I know he's paid for it, but this Avs team's good enough to make playoffs without riding Makar that heavy, especially down the stretch. Like I know they're fighting a little bit with Minnesota, but you're a good enough team. Like who cares if the Avs got wild card? I mean, we were all pretty confident regardless. I think we all said it. Dallas was maybe the worst matchup for the Avs, and they fought their asses off just to get Dallas. And I think part of Makar's issue too is now that they don't have Rantanen, he might have felt extra pressure that he had to do so much more to help McKinnon. and he kind of started getting in his own head because he wasn't producing like he should. And then he started second guessing everything. So that's my thought on him. Like they need to rein in his ice time a little. And they need, like you said, someone needs to talk with him and just get him back to playing his simple game of hockey, because his simple game is extraordinary. So, but you brought it up, Justin, like McFarland, he's had 3 years post-Cup now.
The NBA 82 game grind is done, and now the real fun begins. The NBA playoffs are here, and it's time for all the high-stakes drama, clutch moments, and jaw-dropping plays. I can't wait. And if you're looking to make the playoffs even more exciting, DraftKings Sports Books has you covered as an official sportsbook betting partner of the NBA. Try placing a bet on your favorite player's performance. Will they drop 30 points, 40, or more? It's your call. Here's something special for first-timers. New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Make it a playoff run to remember with DraftKings. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when they bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ice.
One thing I just want to add, like those last 2 playoff losses before this one, you can kind of attribute it a little to maybe missing a guy like Landeskog in the dressing room, because he's such an emotional anchor for this team that, like, especially that Seattle series, like you saw emotions ran high at times with it, and Colorado just didn't have Landeskog, which hurt them that series. And last year we touched on like the whole Nichushkin situation, whatever. But like you said, going forward, how much the fan base seems pretty split on trusting McFarland to fix this. I know you got pretty, like, I'll get you to go in more depth here, Justin, because you got a good opinion on it. Like, how much kind of rope does he have here, since we kind of know he's going to at least get the start of next season?
I think he's got like, I give him next season. Like, if I'm a part of whoever makes those decisions, usually I'd probably give someone a bit longer leash who is kind of a critical part in getting this team to where it is now, or 2022 more or less, because he was right in there with Sakic, as much as I think Sakic's right in there right now. And I think it was kind of telling that at the end of the season presser, Sakic was there with McFarland to maybe try to take a bit of heat off, because he was saying, he's just like, I was a part of a lot of these things too. Like, I agreed on, I think it was more or less the Rantanen one. But I mean, you look at this team going forward, especially for next year, you're running low on cap. You have nothing for asset wise to, address the one issue that this team has been boggled down with since Kadri left, and that is the 2C position. Right now, you have Charlie Coyle, who is an overpaid third centerman. You've got issues on your back end. You did solve the goaltending position. I think they're awesome there. They're awesome there for next year, and they are for years after that with Nabokov coming over. I think that's really good place to start. But you trade Rantanen for money and depth, and I like Nate. I like Natchez. I like Drury, but you're still missing a big piece of the puzzle here. So I'd give him this year, and if he makes more swings and misses, like at some point you just kind of got to cut the ties here, and I think look elsewhere to someone that maybe gets a new perspective or a new vision of what this team can look like.
That's fair, yeah. But Trav, given that it looks like Landeskog's back, like no issues, he's starting next season. How much does that maybe change McFarland's perspective on truly finding a 2C now, like a legit elite 2C, or is he now just focusing on getting? Does he have to look more for chemistry wise because you now have two elite wingers on that second line with Landeskog and Nichushkin?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I would have to lean towards just building chemistry, and that mostly revolves around the fact that the Avs don't have a lot left to give in terms of finding a second line center. They kind of they threw out all the cards or put all the cards in the basket kind of this year to get these guys at the deadline to make a run that ultimately led to a first round exit. So I don't know if it's the answer, but I mean I think the logical thing to do, at least to start the season with, would be to just try and allow the chemistry to build with Landeskog being a full-time presence back in this lineup.
Yeah, I think one option I haven't heard a lot of, and I know he's starting to get to the point where he's no longer considered a centerman anymore, but now that they have Landeskog back, what's your guys' thoughts if Colorado tries Necas at 2C? Because like coming up, he was drafted as a kind of center winger hybrid, and he played center at times in Carolina. If you put him between Nichushkin and Landeskog, and you have Druin up with McKinnon and Lehkonen, like it could, in theory, it looks good, but it's just how much trust would Bednar have in Necas as a 2C?
I think that's the big problem with this whole thing is they need to give them reps. They need to, get them going there from training camp early on and run with, and then like keep them there. Not a game here, a game there, get frustrated and change it all. It's something that they have to commit to and, go with it. And, we saw pre-injury days, Landeskog was a really good fill-in for taking face-offs and, kind of covering that position when needed, right? So, like, it would probably be an ideal line mate for Necas if that's what you wanted to do. And I'm totally fine with doing that. I think Drouin's gone. I think this playoff series kind of probably rode his way out unless he's willing to take another sweetheart deal, but I don't think they're willing to kind of throw more money at him. I think they're going to use that money elsewhere and then maybe go to him and say, this is what we have left. But I'm totally down for that if that's kind of their best viable option cap-wise and asset-wise to look at, because he's going to be making enough money that, you got to give him a shot.
Yeah, and yeah, it depends on what Drouin signs for if they bring him back too for a lot of that. Last thing on Colorado, then we can quickly hit on a few other things going around in playoffs. I touched on it earlier. Their defense, it needs a shakeup. Like, to me, they have to bring back Lindgren, or you have to find a player like him in free agency, because you just don't have that type of player on your blue line. Manson's too injury prone, and just at this point in his career is a third pair guy. It's one, I think now, like I've heard so many different Avs podcasts, and a lot of fans, again, are kind of split on this. Trading Sam Girard, like, now is the time to seriously look at it, because especially now you have guys like Sean Behrens and Mikhail Guliev in your system that are essentially Girard replacements. What is the point of keeping this guy and just tanking his value any further when you can trade him and maybe that gets you a somewhat decent 2C? Maybe that finds you a winger replacement if you're not bringing back Duran. It's just that blue line to me, like you can no longer. They're not trading Makar. They just signed Taze. Girard has to be the guy to go because you can't keep those three on the same blue line going into next year.
Man, like Malinsky, I think Malinsky kind of proved that he can kind of take that role from Girard. Like,
yeah,
obviously it's not going to be like a, in and out, you're not going to notice, but I think you're kind of getting the same sort of player. I think he had his lulls there for a bit, but in the playoffs, I think he was just fine. And I think he's got a way better shot. I really think that's kind of the way you need to go if that's something that, you can do and open up some space or like a trade wise to fill in the other holes that you're kind of looking at too. But I think, you take one Sam out and you just, bump up the other one.
Yeah. Again, if you bring back Lindgren, like that's your lefty righty second pair. I know a lot of people probably don't think Malinsky's a second pair defenseman yet, and if he ever will be, but maybe that's you just go and you get another solid D to pair with Manson, and you just run your second and third pairs are just interchangeable then, and you just kind of run the hot hand. So we'll see what Colorado does this offseason. Obviously, not a lot of cap space, not a lot of trade assets. So McFarland's going to have to get creative to fix the issue. But about 10 minutes or so, boys. I'll let you guys kind of pick this up. What's one main thing you want to talk about here that either first round or early second round that's been going on?
Actually, I think I mentioned this when I was talking about Rantanen, how I thought the Stars were a favorite. I'm a little, I guess, torn on who I'm kind of leaning towards. Like I got three teams that I think all look very run worthy here. Obviously, the first one being the Stars. And it's just because they're loaded with depth. They just got Miro Heiskanen back tonight. Their lineup's at full capacity now. They've been kind of taking a kick at the can for a number of years here. Number two, and I think they're flying under the radar this year, but they've also been taking a kick at the can the last couple of years here. Sorry. Is the Carolina Hurricanes. I think the biggest thing that I've noticed about their game in this year's playoffs is they look a lot looser. The last couple of years, it looked like you could almost tell that they felt pressure to try and get it done because so many people had them as Cup favorites. And now I think this year a lot of people didn't peg them as Cup favorites, but they are, essentially the same group with a few, added pieces in what were maybe a few loopholes in their lineup. I don't know. They're a pretty fun team to watch right now, and I think they're not getting talked about enough. And then the third team, and I'll admit that I was totally wrong on them, is the Oilers. I just think you can just sense the hunger from the loss last year in that team right now. One unlucky bounce against Vegas, and the Oilers would have swept this series. McDavid and Draisaitl will not be denied. And Brock, I remember you kind of pointing that out when we were doing our first round predictions, and I was stupid enough to pick the LA Kings. It's just they won't be denied, and you can just see the hunger. Everybody in that lineup right now has stepped up their game the same way they did in last year's playoffs. Only this time they're here to kind of finish the mission. So, I guess that was the biggest thing I wanted to bring up was I got kind of a three-way tie for my favorite right now, because all three of these squads look pretty good and only one can win.
Yeah, and the thing with the Oilers, like Vegas is to some degree kept McDavid, Draisaitl in check, and yet Oilers are still up 3-1 in that series. So, like you said, Trav, they're getting depth from every which way. And maybe with last night's win, Stuart Skinner's finally rebounding to last year's playoff form. But yeah, the Oilers are finding a stride. And to Carolina, I think injecting a guy like Stankoven to pair with Jarvis, like just that youth and that excitement that those two play with is exactly what Carolina needed. Like, just keep the locker room light, and we could see a rematch of the 2006 Stanley Cup Final. So, Justin, you got anything from the first round and half of the second?
I mean, like, just to piggyback quickly on what Trav's saying, I'm pretty impressed by the Oilers, what they're doing, kind of with their rotating kind of goalie situation that they're in, and just kind of I really didn't think that was a good enough defense to get them this far already. 7 wins, 1 away from the conference finals again, so it's pretty impressive. But I kind of hate doing it, but I've been so unimpressed, surprisingly, at the officiating this whole season. I know it's tiring to talk about. It's tiring to kind of, listen to and whatnot, but it's so bad. I probably say it every year. It's probably the worst year of officiating, but this year, I don't know, it might take the cake, to let alone like the consistency on calls being made, but like how calls are being made. Rodriguez gets called for an embellishment after being hit from behind. It's insane. The call in the Game 7 Stars Avs, like with Drury, like he was holding Seguin. They were kind of battling. That's not a call that you would really ever make with 5 minutes left in a Game 7 with a series on the line. I'm sure there's a bunch of other ones that I'm not really thinking about, but the Stars jet skiing the other day, Petrovic, I think it was, that kicked the puck pretty much kicked the puck towards the net, and the rule book, I'm pretty sure, says any kicking motion towards the net, doesn't matter what happens after, it'll be a no goal. But they called it a goal after 7.5 minutes of replay. They almost played all Freebird. Freebird was almost over by the time they decided that it was a good goal because Hellebuck put it in. I don't know if I've ever heard that explanation after a puck being kicked, like so blatantly. And, that just goes to, like, if you can't make a decision within 2 minutes of a call, then you got to go with call on the ice and get this thing going, because, I mean, these guys do this every day of the year. And the fact how bad it is right now with so much on the line is, like, it kind of, like, hurts to watch in a way. Like, I don't know, sometimes takes away from it. And I get people get angry that they don't call it the same in regular season and playoffs, but like, it's not the same hockey, man. Like, the regular season, there's 82 games, like, there's a lot to go on. Like, not every game is like worth as much as it is now. Like, you have to be a bit more like not lenient, but open to things happening and letting guys battle a bit more, because there's a lot more on the line right now. And I just don't see any sort of consistency, or just like they're just making calls sometimes to make calls. And it's hard to watch at this time of year.
It's definitely been frustrating. And to the kick, like, I have yet to actually see a replay anywhere that clearly shows Hellebuyck shooting the puck into his own net, because the rule states even if it deflects off the goalie after the kick, it's a no goal. So, like, how they determine that Hellebuyck intentionally put the puck into his own net is just ludicrous, because he's literally like reaching back trying to stop the puck from going in, and it hits off his stick and goes in. But there's been so much talk about the officials. I'll give the Leafs their due. I picked the Sens in that first round because Toronto had to prove me wrong. I'm only giving them their due to a degree, because in Game 5, they showed they are still nowhere close to a true cup team. How can you, after losing in overtime in Game 4 with the chance to sweep, home ice, like, you've basically been owning the Sens that whole series, and they just laid a goose egg. Like, you could, like, I was convinced that series was going 7. And to me, that game alone just proved that the Leafs are not ready for Florida. And as we can see, like, it's tied going back to Toronto for Game 5 on Wednesday night. The Leafs have played good, but they're missing something. And I think a lot of their fans need to have a hard look in the mirror, because if you're thinking Toronto's even going to, like, survive Florida, like, they might still beat Florida. I don't know. It's a coin flip series. Toronto's not coming out of that any better. Like, they're going to beat Florida. They're going to have so many guys just not want to play any more hockey because of what this Florida series is going to do to them. Other than that, Edmonton looks hungry to get back to the Cup final, and Hellebuyck kind of proved us wrong in round 1, but is kind of proving us right in round 2 too. So we'll see. I mean, we're not quite halfway through the 2025 playoffs. Lots of storylines left to unfold, but we'll touch on more next week when we return. So thanks everyone for tuning in to Snapping Around, and catch y'all next week as the playoffs continue to head on full steam.